My name is Zainab Aliyu, and I'm a 2025 Artist in Residence at Baxter St. The title of the show is a litany for past sons, and this comes from a longer poem that I wrote, which is a bilateral anagram where all the letters in the first part make up all the letters in the second part. A litany for past sons labeled rituals, a star lit any and all possible futures. The images in this exhibition bring together photos from my familial archive with photos shared with me by my community, and they're paired together as stereographs. So stereographs are forms of early photography that is directly entangled with colonial visual regimes that are used to classify people and landscapes as data. I'm drawn to stereoscopy as a form because it refuses a single image, a single truth. Meaning only emerges in relation, through two images, and through the viewer and the work. My process for this project involves manipulating the formal mechanics of stereoscopy to create new spatial logics of memory. And so I worked with two archives for this show. The first is an archive of images scanned from my grandmother's home during a 2018 family trip to Nigeria. I didn't know at the time that that trip would actually be the last time that I would see my grandmother and also the last time that I would be in her home. My grandma's walls were actually filled top to bottom with images, framed, and then also a lot of images that were stored in boxes. And so during this trip in 2018, I sat down with my grandmother, my mother, and my father, and we would go through each image and talk about them. And I would scan each image as we went. And then the second archive came during a residency with the African Film Festival at the Film at Lincoln Center. During the residency, I worked with the organizers of the film festival to do an informal open call for people in the community to share images with me. And so on the left side, you have an image from my family archive, and then on the right side, you have an image from someone else's family archive, juxtaposed together in the same object. And so with the anaglyphs, instead of left to right, you have two layers of images. One layer is an image from my family archive, and the other layer is an image from someone else's family archive. And so you have to look through the red and blue viewers embedded within the gates to see the two different layers of images. And so you look through the red viewer and you see an image from someone else's archive, and you look through the blue viewer and you see an image from my archive. And this red-blue form is really just taking its form from these early forms of anaglyph images that many people are familiar with from 3D videos. I extend that red-blue logic into other objects in the space. You have the red clay that's sprinkled throughout the space in a jewelry box, and you have blue forget-me-not flowers also sprinkled out throughout the space. The fragmented gates in the space introduce thresholds that mark moments of protection, negotiation, rather than full enclosure. They're marked with Ndinkra symbols from Ghana, which historically circulated through material practices like metalwork, textiles, and architecture, often carried and adapted by enslaved people. So there are 4 fragmented gates in the space, and then there is one other form that functions like a gate, but is something else. That form references the Edan Agbani paired staff, which is an object from my Yoruba Nigerian heritage. The staff embodies duality, balance, and relation. That idea of duality is structural to the entire installation. I think of the installation as an interior that you enter, not a set of images that you scan. I really want viewers to look through, within, around objects, rather than consume images quickly. Bringing domestic space into the gallery felt less like staging something new, and rather honoring the conditions through which these images have already lived, which is through and around my grandmother's home. Black domestic space is also where contradictions exist without needing resolution. And this has shaped how I think about images structurally. I'm comfortable with partial knowledge, knowing something without fully seeing it. And I think that's why I'm drawn to stereoscopy as a form of image. When I first began this project, I was curious whether computational systems designed to recognize patterns could help me locate resonances across archives. That's where the text in the show comes in. The speculative captions you see sit alongside machine-generated captions that claim objectivity. I experimented with organizing and captioning hundreds of photographs using code. The machine-generated captions flattened lived realities into neutral, supposedly objective language. They misread context and erased intimacy. Those failures became evidence of how contemporary systems of seeing still operate and how they inherit colonial ways of organizing knowledge. It reveals what these systems were never meant to hold. I would consider myself a conceptual artist working across a lot of different mediums, This includes installation, sculpture, video, print, web. Within my practice, I'm often contextualizing my familial histories within larger socio-political techno lens. Yeah, I would say as an artist working across a lot of different mediums, I would say it's definitely a challenge to be able to have dedicated access to the different types of materials that one needs to produce their works. Especially in New York City, it's incredibly difficult. And I think the time that I've been at Baxter, it's been at least really nice to have the sort of stability of place to make and settle in, from the workspace, the dedicated workspace that we have, to even the space to conceptualize an entire exhibition. I think for many, their first solo exhibition, including my own, has been extremely important for me. Colonial systems shape public histories, but they also reach into our homes and our daily lives. They shape what is passed down, what is lost, and what is no longer remembered. I feel really lucky that my family history has been quite documented. I have all these images, and then also people have shared images with me. And for those who are coming in, especially those who don't have access to their images, and particularly those who have been affected by transatlantic slavery, migration, et cetera, we can start to extrapolate from one another and to sort of envision the ways that our ancestors have lived and ways that our future ancestors will live. The biggest gratitude to Jill and Sydney at Baxter Street and the entire team at Baxter Street for all your support throughout my 2025 residency and beyond. And then also to Grandma and Elijah, resting in peace, power, and continuity.